New life, weak and scrawny, and a question. So first, new life. I'm sure the news is already getting around. Maybe it was even on the opening announcements today, I don't know. But this morning, after I pray early in the morning, when it's still dark, I walk around the long way, or at least especially the last couple of weeks or the last couple of days, to make sure, see if I hear anything. And as I'm walking, I hear a chirp. And I'm like, is Mrs. Burke in the class at her desk chirping? But I peeked in the room and Mrs. Burke wasn't in there. And of course, we know one of the chicks hatched. So that's a great image, boys and girls, of me peeking in there and looking at the chick this morning and seeing new life. Easter is a time of new life. And we get our life because of Jesus' death and resurrection from the cross. And all this whole Easter season, we're going through the Acts of the Apostles, where we just heard our first reading. And all the Acts of the Apostles, we have the apostles, James and John and Peter, the last couple of days especially, they're going around telling people, like, here you can have new life. You can experience new life. You can be dead to sin and then rise up because Jesus rose up. And they're going around, they're telling these people, some people don't like hearing it at all. Some people are receiving it. And so it's just a reminder, right, that new life, boys and girls, that we're supposed to be doing that too. We're supposed to receive it first, that new life, more and more in this Easter season, and also the importance to share it. Which brings me to weak and scrawny. As I'm sitting there and looking in the, what you call it, an incubator, right? I'm sitting there staring at it, and I'm looking at the little guy, and I'm like, he's wet, and he's weak, and he's scrawny. And I was just sitting there looking at the guy, and I started feeling bad for him. Because it's like pretty soon he's going to need some food. He's not going to survive very long alone without getting food, without getting nourishment. And in our gospel today, we see Jesus kind of similar. I was looking into this, seeing that chick and seeing him kind of weak and scrawny. Jesus looks out and sees tons of people. And he kind of just, he feels, his eyes look and he's like, they need help. And people are like, should we send them away to go tell them to go get food because we can't help them? And what does Jesus say? He says, have the people recline. Jesus says, have them rest with me. I will provide for them. I will give them nourishment. And he multiplies the fish and the bread, which is an indication of what he does and gives us of himself in the Eucharist, that we can receive him. And our first graders or second graders were on retreat last night, preparing to receive their first communion here coming up in a month. Which brings me to, or lastly, a question. A question for all of us today is to ask ourselves, where do I recline? Where do I recline? Where do I turn to? Or what do I turn to receive new life? There's so many things we can turn to receive new life. Mr. Hupp, I know, is a really big Cubs fan like me, and I'm excited about the Cubs right now. I haven't been really paying much attention to them the last couple of years, but they're playing good right now, so I'm a little excited. And I woke up this morning and I'm like, let me see this. Let me check the highlights out. And they lost. But I kind of was turning to them to receive life. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I can't turn to the Cubs to receive life. Even if they were to win this morning or last night. Where do I recline? Ask yourself, boys and girls, do I recline and try to receive new life? Like when I'm tired, when maybe I'm struggling, when things are not going well in school or at home, when I need to receive new life, where do I recline? It could be it could be, it can be things like video games, turn to video games. It can be turned into sports. But Jesus says, those are good things, but remember to receive full life. Recline and rest with me, and I will give you nourishment. I will give you new life. And we want to remember that, boys and girls. Maybe even when we look in there, well, I'm sure everyone at some point today or at some point today will be able to stop in and see the chick, or maybe it's next week. Sorry, teachers, if it's not today. When you look in there and you see the new life, you see the chicks. You want to remember, like maybe it's even a prayer of like helping us to turn to the Lord, to recline with Him, so that we receive that new life that He wants to give us.